Hello, parents. My name is Amy Bowden, and I'm an adjunct instructor of teacher education at a local college here in the Panhandle. But most importantly, I'm a parent of children who attend the Okaloosa County School System public schools. And just like you, I'm facing homeschooling my children through the distance learning program that Okaloosa County will be setting up for our children. I have 17 years in the classroom, and I still find this a little bit daunting, a little bit overwhelming to think about. So I thought that maybe I would create this little video just to kind of share some tips and maybe some strategies to help us all feel a little bit more successful in doing what we're about to start doing. First things first, one of the most important things that we teach our teacher education students, those people who are wanting to become professional educators, the first thing we teach them is you've got to create routines and set a schedule. Those of us that are facing having our children home and doing some education from home, we need to do the exact same thing. We need to continue to stick to a bedtime. We need to continue to have breakfast prior to their school time. We need to create a schedule. It wouldn't even hurt to post it somewhere in our house as a reminder of this is what we're doing at this time. This is when we're going to have lunch. This is when we're going to have breaks, things like that. Even create a set school place in your house where you have to have your little school time. This could be maybe an office that you have or a playroom, a desk, maybe a certain table, your dining room table, something like that. I know I kind of have a tiny house, so we're going to have to use my dining room table. But to do something to kind of alter it a little bit to make it feel like it's our school time, I have a special tablecloth that I'm going to put on the table when it's time for school. As soon as our school time is done, the tablecloth will come off. It's small, but it's a visual reminder to children that that's the expectation right now. This is school time. And so something like that may be very beneficial for you and your children as well. Create those routines and set a schedule, and then try your best to stick to it. It's also really important for all of us as parents to kind of understand a little bit about how children learn. We all, as parents, are the number one people who know our children best. Please don't take me the wrong way and think that as a teacher, oh, we know your child better. It's not that at all. But as professional educators, we have learned over time how children learn. There's a lot of research behind it. And until I saw it in action as a parent and paired it with my professional knowledge, I didn't realize how it actually worked together. Now, as a parent, I can see how it works. And I think it's important for you as you begin to teach your children to understand how children learn too. First, it's important to realize that children have a set attention span. Typical rule of thumb is the age of the child plus or minus a minute. So if your child is only, let's say, 7 years old, you pretty much have an attention span of anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes. Now, that's a little bit flexible depending upon certain children and certain abilities or disabilities, but that's just a general rule of thumb. That means if your child is 7, you've got about 7 minutes before you need to change up what you're doing. That doesn't mean that they learn only in 7-minute increments, but what a classroom teacher does is they might have 7 minutes of instruction or 7 minutes of not just lecture, but modeling how to do a problem. And then they change it up and they let the students think, pair, and share and talk with a neighbor about the problem. That resets that attention span. Or perhaps they have them get up and get a textbook and then come back. That resets that attention span another 7 minutes. You can do the same thing at home. 7 minutes of focused learning if your child is 7, or just giving you a general rule of thumb here. And then let them do something that's related to the activity that they're working on, but maybe change it up just a little bit. So now instead of sitting down, they're standing up, something like that to help reset that attention span a little bit. Breaks are needed, so plan them. Your children don't sit in desks for 6.5 hours every day. They're at school that long, but they're not sitting in a desk just focused on instruction for an entire 6.5 hours. They have PE breaks. They have transition times. Perhaps they even use something like Go Noodle for brain breaks. They have a lunch break. They have those recess times that are in there. Your children at home will need breaks as well. Please try not to have them just sit down and knock out an entire day's learning in 3 hours with no break in there. They're not going to retain everything that they're supposed to get out of that day's lesson. So plan some breaks, no more than maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes of work time, and then just a quick 10, 15-minute break. Run outside, do something different color, do something with a craft or something like that, and then get back to work. They don't have to be long breaks, but just enough to get their mind off of what they were doing, as it actually will help set the content into their long-term memory a little bit more. It's also important to know that research shows us that productive struggle is a real thing, and it's actually good for your child. Sometimes during this process, you will see your child come to a problem that's really difficult, something they really are struggling with for a minute. And as a parent, it's our normal reaction to want to jump in and help them solve the problem, or help them, guide to the next step, or tell them the right answer, or spell it out for them. But productive struggle is really a good thing for children. Multiple theorists show us how productive struggle actually forces our children to think. And then when we ask them to explain their thinking, it solidifies that learning. So allow your child to struggle for a minute with a difficult problem. Give them, prompt them, give them tips, give them strategies to try. Well, remember this problem back here, we did this and this. So if you're stuck on this problem, let's look back at our other problem, and then let them have to look back at the other problem and think for a minute. Let them wrestle with it. Let them try 3 or 4 different strategies until they find one that's actually working, until they can solve the problem. It's okay to let them use their resources as well. Don't just answer their question right away. Don't be too quick to answer their questions. Encourage them to use their resources and to think first. Well, we don't know how to spell this word. Where have we seen this word recently? And let them go back and look for it, just like they would in a classroom when they would look at a word wall, or back in the previous text that they just read, or something like that. It's okay for them to have to think. Also, it's really important, we know, for children in their learning, to let children move and to create and wonder and question and explore, and not just stare at the video screen the whole time. If they're taking what video lessons they're getting from the school system, and then they're questioning and they're wondering and they're doing something to create, or they're spelling it out with their bodies, or they're doing the math problems with Play-Doh or something like that, learning then transfers into that long-term memory. Please don't expect your child to get the new information right away or after only one lesson or one explanation. Repetition is necessary for all learners. Some of you will find that, if you have a child who perhaps has a learning disability, you may find that repetition is needed even more, and more repetition for those learners. Some of you may have high achieving learners, and you might find that they only need something to be repeated 2 or 3 times, or only a couple of practice problems. Every child is different, but one commonality amongst all children is that repetition is necessary for all learners. Please don't expect them to get this new concept right away. It's okay for them to struggle. Also, please try to avoid having your child do several days worth of work all in one time if possible. It's really tempting for us to be like, oh, go ahead and do 3 days worth, and then we'll just have today be a work day, and the next 2 days we'll just play or do whatever we want to. Try to avoid that if possible, because like I said, repetition and repeated practice lead to better transfer into long-term memory. Also, brain overload is also a real thing. When we cram too much information into our brains too quickly, we might be able to get the right answer right now, but that doesn't mean that we're actually going to retain the concept or the information in the long run. Space out the work, just as your teacher who provides you the learning and guiding the lessons through the distance learning will space out information. Likewise, it's important for us to have our children space out their work over several days instead of trying to cram everything in at once. One of the most powerful teaching tools that we teach our teacher education students is the fantastic tool of specific praise. Specific praise is easily integrated into every aspect of our lives, so use it often and use it meaningfully. We say things like, good job, but that's not very specific. Instead, we could say something like, yes, I really like the way you used your resource there, smart thinking. Or I really like the way you struggled with that problem until you solved it. Way to stick with it. Or maybe they got the question wrong, and you can say, no, that's not quite the right answer. But with the way that you're working so hard, I know we're going to get this. Keep up the hard work. Specific praise reinforces to a student what they did well. Whether or not they were right, they still did something well. Maybe they used a resource. Maybe they were writing neatly. Find something positive and something specific that you can praise, and that reinforces that to that student to go, I need to do this again. If you have siblings around and they hear those kinds of specific praise comments, it also tells those individuals, hey, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I have a 4th grader, a 2nd grader, and then a preschooler. And if I tell my 4th grader, I really like the way you used your resource right there, what do you think my 2nd grader is fixing to do when he has a problem? He's going to use his resources. So try the specific praise, not just with academics, but everything in your home. You'll be quite surprised how nicely it can work. But this is definitely a powerful teaching tool that as parents, we can use at home to really enhance the learning of our students while they're learning remotely from home. So I just mentioned I have 3 kids. I have a 4th grader, a 2nd grader, and a preschooler. I only have 1 computer, so what do? Well, when you create your schedule, try to set it up so that maybe one child is working on the computer programs or viewing the lessons from the county, something like that from your kid's teacher, while maybe the other 1 or 2 or however many kids you have might be doing some independent reading or working with you, or maybe they're doing some writing. Try to find things that they can do do together. For example, if the science lessons kind of overlap and happen to be on the same concepts, do those lessons together. For example, my 4th grader might be learning about ecosystems, and my 2nd grader might be learning about how plants and animals work together within habitats. Well, those 2 science concepts are extremely similar. So I can do lessons with them together. We can watch their teachers' lessons together and do those things alike at the same time. But then where one of them might be studying fractions and the other one studying time, I can't do those at the same time. So I'll get one student doing one piece, perhaps the video lesson online, and the other one's working with me individually. What's my preschooler doing? Well, maybe I have her working on her sight word cards or reading her Bob books or something like that independently, or practicing shapes or practicing matching up letters that are capital and letters that are lowercase, things like that. Whatever it is the teachers have assigned, okay? I can even have, while I'm working with one kid individually, I can have 2 other kids doing something together, but that's relative to what they're learning. So for example, I could have my 4th grader practicing multiplication flashcards while my 2nd grader is doing subtraction flashcards, and they could do them for each other. My 2nd grader can hold up the multiplication ones for my 4th grader, while my 4th grader holds up the subtraction ones for the 2nd grader, and they take turns. Or I could mix the kindergartner or preschooler in there and have her doing sight word cards while the other ones are doing the multiplication or division or subtraction or addition. Anything like that might be beneficial for your house too. Most importantly, please remember this is a big adjustment for everyone, including your child's teacher, and most definitely including your child. He or she may be really missing his friends, the teachers, and really a sense of normalcy. During times like this, it isn't unusual for children to try to test their boundaries or try the limits in these kinds of situations. So consistency, clear expectations, and praising the good things are key right now. This is exactly what your child's teacher would be doing in the classroom. They would be maintaining consistency in schedule, and they would be maintaining consistency in their treatment of all students and their patience with all students. They would be setting clear expectations, not only for behavior, but also for learning. And then they would be finding everything they could that's positive to praise those good things right now. Those kinds of reinforcements will go a really long way right now with children. It's okay for you as a parent right now to feel overwhelmed and even frustrated. Please don't be afraid to reach out to your child's teacher or the school staff for some help and for some support. And more than ever before, your child's education will rely on a good partnership between the school and home. Together, we parents and we teachers and we school staff and all of us together, we can finish this year strong and with shocking learning gains still able to happen. But it is going to take all of us. Thanks for your time, and I hope that something within this video was helpful to you. We can do this, parents.